Good afternoon from sunny Marvessa. We are here at the conference at a Crossroads, an intergenerational and multi-faith response to social and environmental crises. And today with us, with Rens and me, we have the honor to talk to Ms. Bani Dugal, who is a principal representative to the UN of the Baha'i International Community. Ms. Dugal, welcome and thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much. It's a real pleasure. I remember our interview in Lindau not so long ago.
It's a pleasure to have you again with us.
Thank
Happy
you.
to have you with us again.
Thank you.
So, Ms. Dugal, you have been to a COP27. There was a side event organized by Religions for Peace,
Yes.
Baha'i International Community, and the partners. So, could you tell us some key takeaways from the event? What did you learn? Did the event live up to your expectations?
Yeah, the event was a good one. It presented a diversity of views of each of the speakers and the partners. And I was really heartened by a comment from the floor that came from one of the MEPs of the European Parliament, who talked about how important it is to have religious actors speaking on this issue. And that's what was my takeaway, because we have governments there, we have corporations there, we have civil society there. But I think the moral voice of religious leaders is really important in such a space.
Well, it's good to know that finally, even in the political sphere, they're starting to include the value of how religious communities can contribute to addressing these issues that we're facing. And speaking of that, we know that you hold a master's degree in environmental law. We're at a conference where we discuss the environmental issues and crises we're facing. It's a multi-religious conference. How do you think and how do you see, how we can put together both a legal and a multi-religious solution to this crisis? Or do you think it's even possible to bring the two perspectives together, and how we can do that to address these issues?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, because one of the reasons why I don't practice environmental law is that while they have the laws in place and the laws are really good, there's a real disconnect between the application of the law and the lives of real people, because we know what needs to be done. We need to clean up the environment, we have to resolve the issues, but that's not always the just solution. Because I can give you a case, an example. I was working for the Department of Environmental Conservation in New York State, and we sent a consent decree to a dry cleaning company that had polluted the groundwater system. And in came this tiny Chinese couple in tears. They had just bought the store 1 year ago, and they were being asked to clean up for decades of pollution, which meant they were going out of business. And all of a sudden I realized that yes, we need to do justice towards the environment, but what about justice towards these people? It's not their fault. Their problem was that they hadn't done the due diligence before buying this property. But still, so I think we have policies and we have grassroots action, and there's a disconnect between them. And that is where we need to bring some sort of a connection. And faith-based actors have the capacity to understand what is required and to connect the community with the leaders and the policies, so that we can actually make climate actions more of a reality and in a more practical way.
And now that we were talking about, bringing justice not just to the environment, but to the people, and how we really need to move forward with actions. Tomorrow, as we close the conference, we will be signing a pact, the Manresa Pact, that would focus on our commitments towards addressing the environmental and social crisis. What do you hope to see in that pact, and how do you plan to implement the commitments we're making in your own personal ways?
Yeah, so in this process, I mean, we come into the world as a trust of the whole. And then it's the responsibility of every individual to to further that trust for the future generations. And what I'd really like to see in this pact is for religious leaders to make a commitment to hold our politicians, our leaders accountable. And we keep saying this, but we really have to understand that religious leaders, most politicians, are also religious actors. I mean, they have a faith. And so there's a lot of influence that can be wielded by religious leaders. But instead, and I may get in trouble with some of my colleagues for saying this, instead, I think sometimes religion gets co-opted by the politicians. And I think it should be the other way around, that we should be calling them to live their higher life, walk the higher road, away from corruption and greed and, all of those characteristics of a lower nature, and really aspire to bringing this world up to the level that it needs to be, in balance and in harmony. I'm not saying we throw out all commercial activity, but it has to be balanced. And I think the choice is theirs, whether to usher in a time when we can respect the environment, or if they're forced to do it because there's going to be such disasters. So really the choice is there for the leaders and for the people of the world. And I hope we will step up to the ideals that we all like to observe.
Exactly, and thank you for really joining us. Amina and I are always having this happy conversation. It's a pleasure to always interview you and have a conversation with you on these topics.
Thank
For
you.
the kind words, and with this, we are threatening your ratings from Marvesa, and stay tuned for other interviews.